If you want your home cinema to feel like a real cinema, you need to hear Mag Theatron. With more than 20 years' experience in commercial theatres worldwide, Mag's award-winning speaker systems deliver the same cinematic impact, now purpose-built for residential use. Made in Ukraine and engineered in-house, up to 95% of every transducer is Mag's own design. From high SPL loudspeakers to infrasonic subwoofers and DSP-loaded amps, Mag Theatron is the real deal. Exclusively available in Australia through Integrate Unlimited. If you've ever wished for a design partner without the overhead, meet Colosseum. Launched in 2024, Colosseum is a white-label design and engineering service built specifically for integrators, whether you're new to the game or running million-dollar installs. They turn basic floor plans into detailed, high-impact cinema-ready documentation, brand agnostic, collaboration first, and led by industry veteran Paul McLean. I've seen the work myself. This is world-class support for serious cinema projects. Colosseum, your behind-the-scenes design team. When we talk about smart homes, we often focus on convenience, comfort, entertainment, making life a little easier. But today's guest, he's working on something much deeper. I'm Paul Skelton, journalist, industry advocate, and host of Master Integrator. Before we get into today's episode, a quick shout out to our sponsors who helped to make this show possible. Mag Theatron, high-performance cinema loudspeakers distributed exclusively in Australia by Integrate Unlimited, and Colosseum, the design and documentation wingman you didn't know you needed. Steve Thomas runs a business called Geohaven, specialising in smart home solutions for people living with disability. His journey into that space started with a simple job, automating some lights for a man with motor neuron disease. It didn't seem like a big deal until the client said something that stuck. From that point on, Steve shifted his entire career, away from high-end automation towards systems that support dignity, independence, and real quality of life. In this episode, we talk about what it means to design for people with high support needs, how it challenges your assumptions, and why ethical thinking matters more than ever. We also talk about the NDIS, the SDA Design Standard, the emotional weight of working in this space, and what the industry needs to do if we're serious about making a difference. This is a grounded, human conversation about integration that matters. This is Master Integrator. Here's Steve Thomas. For those listeners who don't know you and your background, why don't you just give them a bit of an introduction of where it is that you come from and your journey in the industry so far?
Certainly. Well, I don't want to show my age, but I started off as an electronics technician many, many years ago, where I did a 4-year apprenticeship. So I was called a radio tradesman back in those days. Radios was just a little bit, but it was more about fixing TVs and videos and anything that you could plug into. We learned how to fix. So it was a good industry to get into. I remember as a young kid, I wanted to make sure that I had something relevant to do when I got a bit older. I wasn't going to be one of these industries that died off. So I chose electronics, and I wasn't wrong. It's always evolving, always challenging. There's always things to do. But that's how I started as an electronics technician, a bench tech, 4-year apprenticeship. And after my 4 years of learning how to be a technician, there was another year of night school. It just kept on going. There's always things to learn. So I remember I would finish trade school on a Wednesday, or finish my job on a Wednesday and then go to trade school that night. Then I had to go to night school, and by the time I got home, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, get up and then go to work and do it again. So those were the days, but I think that was normal back those. So after being a bench tech for many, many years, it led into home theatre, did a bit of home theatre. So there was AV, there was home theatre, there was a change in the industry. And I remember looking at, when I first started doing my job as a tech, you'd open the back of a TV and it was just chock-a-block full of circuit boards. then after many, many years, I took the back off a TV and looked at it, and there was this one little tiny board. And I went, what am I going to do now? So I always had an idea that there was going to be something different other than just being a bench tech. So I left the industry for a little while and went into telecommunications for a little bit. And then I got called back into the home automation world, which was a lot more advanced than what I was used to. So it was a learning experience for me. I joined a company that was specializing in high-end residential, which was so exciting. I remember waking up thinking, I can't wait to go to work and talk to these. There was a bunch of very skillful people, and I would get to work with these guys every day. And that was enjoyable, and I was learning so much. And then they would take me out to these amazing homes, these massive, beautiful, high-end residential homes that you would only just dream of going through. And it was just an amazing job. I absolutely loved every day that I worked there. It was just it was as a geek talking about geeky stuff with the pointy end of the industry. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was fantastic. I still get goosebumps sometimes. There's a few pivotal moments where we went into some of these houses, and it was just a pinch me moment. But I'm sure anybody that works in high end residential now would have a similar experience where it's just a pleasure to go to work every day. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's tricky, but working there gave me the opportunity to learn about the home automation industry at the high end and gain an understanding of what's involved to have a successful project from the start right through to the finish. There's a lot of important factors that have to happen. So I was able to learn how that happened and what made a good successful project. And every job we did was very customized, and that was important as well. And that sort of having the ability to understand what a customized job is, I thought that was normal because that was where I was working at. But it wasn't until later on that I realized that that's not actually the case. Not everybody has a fully customized solution. Sometimes it's just there's a box on the shelf and this is what it does. It ticks 8 of the boxes, not all 10. But so that was a good experience. So that was how I got back into the home automation industry, or the technical side of things. And it was good to see how skillful teams work together. And I was lucky enough to be part of a project that was award winning. That one of the projects we worked on won the CDU award for best home automation. So that was exciting to be a part of that. How did I get into assistive technology from there? I took a call from a client. A client rang me up and said, "Look, I've got this lighting job. I would like you to do it." Yep, okay, great. And I had a bit of a spiel for people that would give us a call, and they were always after some sort of high end because that's what we were known for. But this wasn't high end. This was a little bit different. This was a guy living in an apartment who wanted some lighting control, very simple stuff with some voice control. So I went out and had a chat to this guy, and he was living in a small apartment, and he had MND, and he couldn't control any of his lights, couldn't do anything. So I said, "Look, this is what we can do." He goes, "Oh, well, it can't be too expensive." Okay, great. And we worked on a solution for him, rolled that out. It was just some smart, was literally, and this was a while ago, so it was just some smart lights and some voice control with Google Home. And I thought, well, yeah, it's not, I've never done this before because we're normally used to doing high end stuff. So that was something different for me. And he gave me a call after the job, and he said, "Look, thank you." He said, "The reason I wanted to have the lighting control installed was because sometimes when my carer leaves, she forgets to turn my bedroom light off. So his bedroom light was on all night." And it sort of hit me. I thought, well, what we did, that little bit, really did change his life. and it was quite inspiring to me. And it was at the same time we were dealing with another very high end client, and this very high end client was very fussy, and he was complaining about the feel of the light switches. He didn't like the way the light switches felt when he pressed the button. And this was around about in a week or two period. It's all a bit blurry now because it was a little while ago. But I thought, I know what I want to do. I love technology, and I really felt that technology can change someone's life. And I really enjoyed helping this client with MND, and didn't really enjoy talking to somebody who didn't like the feeling of his light switches. So I thought, time for a change. So I quit my job, and I remember thinking, oh look, what I'll do is I'll just create a nice little lighting control system. I'll use an RMC4, like a little restaurant processor, and put some program. And I'll just roll it out, and I'll work Monday to Thursday, and I'll play golf on Friday. I said, this is going to be fantastic. I started working with MND Victoria. They were great to work with, and I remember my first meeting that I had with a client, and it was at the client's house with the OT, and they were going through some of the things they wanted, and it came back to me the process of working out a customized job for a client, and I thought, I've really got to reassess my little package and my business plan of working Monday to Thursday, because here we have a gentleman that can't turn his lights on and off, can't control things because he'd lost the use of his arms. He could walk around and talk fine, but he couldn't use his arms. So I thought, well, I need to figure out. It wasn't just so. We wanted to be able to do lighting control, and we've got some AV control, and I went, well, yeah, I've got a bit of a solution, and this is how much money we can spend. Oh, and it wasn't anywhere near what I was used to dealing with. And I knew it wouldn't be, but it was a lot less. So then I've had to go away and do some more research and do some more testing and figure out a solution that would work for this client, that would tick all of his boxes and fit within the budget they had to work with. So it was kind of going back to the drawing board for me. So and we came up with a solution, and he's was very, very happy. The OT was very, very happy. In fact, we still work with those people today. So it was great. So that's how I got into the industry. It was a pivotal moment. There was a couple of weeks where dealing with a tricky client, and then having this gentleman, and we did something what I thought was very, very simple, and it totally changed his life. So that was my introduction into it. There's more to the story working with MND Vic, but that's how the decision came about. That's why I changed doing what I was doing to start Geohaven.
So it was almost a moment that just kind of clicked, where everything, well, there was a moment of clarity, really.
Yeah,
everything kind of fell into place, and you realised that if someone's going to complain about the feel of the light switch, that there's probably more to life to worry about than that.
Yep. Honestly, I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't wait to do it again. I couldn't wait to find a client that would benefit from technology in a way that I knew how to help anyway. So that was really good. That was exciting, and it was fantastic. But as you could probably appreciate, that was just the start of a very long, different journey. There was a lot to learn. Not only did I have to reassess my understanding of what home automation was, but we're also now dealing with clients where if a light doesn't come on, normally you can just, if the automation doesn't work, you can turn the light switch on. But with our new clients, with Geohaven clients, it had to be. It was a little bit more important. If they couldn't turn the light off, if it didn't work, then there's a bigger drama. I and when it came to that point where I had to reassess what products I was going to use, I couldn't use what I was used to using. I couldn't do any of that. So then I had to research the smart switches, the smart modules, what's available, what's good, what's bad, and I didn't really know because I hadn't really worked with any of that before. So I purchased so many different things, so many different brands. Purchased stuff that was very well respected from proper wholesalers, Australia-wide, very reputable, and I would put everything on the test bench and test it and see how it worked and see if it could do what I wanted it to do. And I'm not going to tell you what company it was, but a very well-known Australian company, Smart Switches, had their own range of smart switches, and we had a 10% breakdown rate. So
Wow.
out of 10 switches and this is nothing went to the client. Out of 10 switches, one was faulty. And that was, I think I'm being generous. There was just so many problems with them. And it was as I said, well-known company, well supported. And that really surprised me. So I had to be very careful with what we used and made sure that everything was tested long before we could put it into any client's house. So that was something I wasn't used to as well. That was a little bit, I'd call it a little bit tricky.
So you talked about, for the first time, at least in a very long time, you were really excited about going to work and seeing what the technology could do for people. Now that you've been doing it for a little while, are you still as excited, or has the stress increased as you kind of do realize there's higher stakes involved?
I learned pretty early that the stakes were higher. That was evident pretty much at that first meeting. Did the stress level go up? Yes, the stress level went up. It took a while for me to adjust and get my head around the different way of doing things. It was just a matter of making sure we did our research, and the stress was always going to be there. I guess if you start your own business, it doesn't matter what it is, there's always going to be stress there. But the fact that the importance of the role, the importance of the solution was important, and one of I would say the most important part of what we do isn't necessarily what we use; it's the client's experience. It's the user interface. What can the client use? And when we're finished, can the client use our solution to do what he wanted to do at the beginning? That's where the stress comes in. There have been days where we've been on the job all day and you can't go home, say, we'll come back tomorrow. You've got to finish the job that day, because if you can't finish, there's no, and we're not talking about big mansions. We're talking about average people living with a disability that they've asked us to help them with a solution because they can't do something. And let's use lighting control. We can't leave the job if they can't turn the lights on the way they wanted to, because they're relying on us to do it. So there's carers involved too, quite often, but the carers aren't always there. So yeah, so that did increase the stress level a bit more.
So let's talk a little bit more about MND. So you obviously work with MND Victoria, that's motor neuron disease.
Yep.
It is a disease that presents with some very specific challenges. If we're looking around mobility, communication, declining physical ability.
Yeah.
How did you go about navigating what technology would work in that environment? I mean, you can't really test the technology on people with MND and learn from that necessarily, because that's obviously raises ethical issues. So how did you actually find appropriate technology, and then that's also technology that can be scaled depending on the severity of the homeowner's MND?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. We sort of worked worst case scenario, and then we started worst case scenario and then worked back. So worst case scenario for an MND is a client that can't use arms, legs, voice. They've just got their eyes. So they have devices. They'll have. There's a couple of different, or there's a few different devices. Whether it's a grid pad, and they'll use something like eye gaze. So the eyes are the tool that controls a purpose-built computer. That eye gaze device tracks the eye, and they can control it's a PC, or sorry, it's a tablet type thing, and that has a Zigbee antenna in it, or Z-wave antenna. Some of them have got as well. So we started with that because if it got to that level, and sometimes we had clients and that's all they did have, so we had to use something that would integrate with that. So that was that then gave us a protocol to work with. What can we use? What do we have available? This is what our research was. What do we have available where we can control a number of things: lighting, heating, cooling, access control, TVs. What have we got available to us that can integrate with their existing device, with their eye gaze? So we built stuff around that. We built solutions around that principle. So if and then we would program it to work with that device, and those devices are pretty good too. So they could use their eyes to control their TV. They could turn things on and off, and with our integration, they could then control other things as well. So that's how we chose the technology. And then from there, it's like, well, okay, if we've got to have something that runs on that protocol, what devices are available to us? And it goes back a little bit because the devices that we've got today are so much better than what we had even a few years ago. And I remember when we first started using these devices, we were able to write our own programs and scripts and load that up onto the device. Then that changed. That got taken away from us, and then I'm not too sure, but I'm gathering it was because they were bringing everything towards a much more unified platform or unified system with Matter being introduced or being worked on. So the manufacturers took a lot of the control away from programmers. So then we just had to just deal with whatever they had given us. So that became quite difficult for us in the early days. I remember pulling out some smart modules and trying to program them to do what we wanted to do, and it couldn't do it. And we couldn't change it because that was taken away from us. So we had to find modules or drivers that were created by someone in the open source world and put it online for us, and then we would download that and make it work. So they were probably the most stressful times for us with technology since we started. It's changed now. It's so much better now. It's a bit easier, to be honest. But that was certainly difficult. So that's how we chose it. That's how we chose the technology. And if that's our end goal, if whatever we do has to be scalable and work with that, then we can work our way back. So if it's lighting control, then we'll create something. We'll create a solution or design a solution that they might not necessarily need eye gaze, but it's always going to be there if they need it. But we'll have something that we can add to. It's still quite customizable. It can add things. We can change some things, some way they use it, whether they want to use a phone or voice. So that's how we chose. That's how we sort of go about designing what we're going to use.
How do you navigate the fact that MND it's a progressive disease? So people with MND will become worse over time, unfortunately. Yep. How hands-on are you? How often do you go back to sites after you've, theoretically finished in installation? Is that something that's factored into how you work? And
yeah.
Presumably you design the systems for this to start with.
That's exactly right. Yes. That's what happens. We continually go back to our clients. And it's not just MND clients. We actually go back to all of our clients, but our MND clients, we can start off with just doing some basic lighting control, and that can normally include voice commands because it's one of the more common symptoms is they lose their hands. They can't lift their hands up. So voice control is really common for MND clients. It's popular. It works well. It's easy to roll out, and we can control lots of different things with it. But then if they lose their voice, then what do we do? So we've created a few solutions that can assist with our clients if they do lose their voice. We will use special switches that they can operate that will then run a program or run a scene that can do what they want to do. We have bed control's a popular one. So they quite often have motorized beds, but they have a remote control. It's a handheld remote control. So we have a solution where we use a switch that they can just one simple switch and they can control their bed with that. So that's an example of how we navigate the changes in our design.
I know you work with people experiencing other diseases aside from MND. Obviously, you've got the tie in there with MND Victoria, but what other diseases are you actually designing, or disabilities? What other disabilities are you designing technology?
I'll be honest, I don't often ask. It's a normal assessment for us. So when we get a call from an OT or from MND Vic, but majority now is coming from occupational therapists. I'll just say they've got a client and they need some help. These are OTs that, let's say if they haven't worked with us, they'll give us a call and they will say, look, we want to do this. We've got some lighting control. We've got some heating control we need. Can we have a chat? So we'll go to site and talk to the OT and the client. And it's never about what they've got. It's about what they can use. What would you like to control and how would you like to control it? And then we start there. And I go back to when I was working in the high-end home automation and everything was customizable. So for me, it was a simple transition as opposed to this is a device we've got and this is how you use it, to having something that was totally built around that client. MND is one of those, to answer your question, MND, MS, quadriplegics, there are some clients that have neurological issues, and so we customize it to suit them where they might not be able to control certain, example would be light switches are difficult for one of our clients to use. They can use their hands fine, but they just have difficulty hitting a light switch. So we've created something for them to help them not put holes in the wall or break the switches, which is what. So it's not about the disability, I don't really know what all of our clients' disability is. It's more about, I can tell you what they've got, what we've got working and how they use things. So
you've mentioned OTs or occupational therapists a couple of times. How have you gone about working with them? Because quite often the conversations I've had, they're not really familiar with smart home technology or they've had really bad experiences. So how have you worked to educate them?
It was step by step, OT by OT. It took a very long time. I thought it was one of those, I'll talk to one OT and they'll all call me. Well, no. What was normal, we are not the first company in the world to do what we do, but it was quite rare. There weren't too many companies doing what we do. So it was the first conversation we would have with an OT was they would come to us and they would tell us what they were looking for, what they wanted to control, and what devices they thought they would use. And then they wanted us to install it. And I said, well, and so this is how it was. It probably still is for a lot of OTs where they'll go on to their supplier's website and they'll try and pick something that they think might work. And we would give them an idea of how we would go about the process and what we would use and why we would use it. And that was all not necessarily during the assessment. So we'll do the assessment, we'll go away. We'll do, in the early days, we'd do some more research, we'd figure out what we could use, and then we'll go back to the OT and go, look, this is what we are thinking of using, and this is why we would like to use it, and these are the benefits, whether it be scalable, and what we could add to it later on. And if we needed to change the controlling device, then we could do that. So that's how it started in the beginning. The OTs didn't have any idea. It was all very strange. And it was difficult for some OTs to get their head around that they didn't really have to do anything. All they had to do was call us, tell us what they wanted, we'd do the assessment together, we would come up with a solution, and they would write their report to be submitted and then reviewed and approved. But that was very difficult for a lot of OTs because they just couldn't get their head around it. And I was used to that. I was used to dealing with architects, trying to do the same thing with them because they were designing a house for the big high-end clients, and then we'd come along and go, well, you can do this. Oh, hang on, I don't know how that's going to work. It's going to jeopardize my relationship with my client because I have no idea what you're talking about. So I was used to trying to get the point across to our clients or the people involved in the project. And the OTs, they work very hard as it is. They're one of the hardest working groups of people that I've seen for a number of years, but that was sort of how it started. And that learning phase for them took a while. It still happens today. We'll have calls from OTs and go, you've been referred to us. We've got a client. What's next? What do we do? So then we roll out our process and go through like that. But that was just the start of it and let's go back to the early days for Geohaven. We would go through that process. We would work out what would be great for the client. We would write the proposal and specify it and go through it with the OT and have all that working great. Then the OT's job is to write a report that justifies everything to the NDIS. And the NDIS would come back and go, well, what do you mean? Hang on, you're going to do what? Okay. And for a number of things, early days, the NDIS had no idea how to categorize what we were doing. They have numbers and codes for everything. But when we started doing things, they couldn't get their head around it. They had to figure out pretty quickly that assistive technology now included smart technology. So I always call it assistive smart technology, so it differentiates just a little bit because assistive technology, bathroom handrails and ramps and all those sorts of things. So we had to educate the OT on what it is was now possible. We would write the report, we write our proposal so they could write their report, and then that would be submitted to the NDIS in a way that would be approved. And one of the obstacles that we've always had has been getting it approved by the NDIS if they don't understand it. And then what funds does the participant have available? And if they don't have those funds available, then what's the process? So that was all new to me because we would, in normal jobs, back in the day when I was doing the high-end residential, you'd write a proposal, you'd present that, and you'd discuss why the devices were selected and what the advantages and features were, and this is why it costs what it does. We had to throw a lot of that out and design something that would meet the client's goals. The OT would understand and approve, but also the NDIS would also understand and approve. It doesn't sound difficult, but it is. It's very difficult, and we've got it down pat now. We understand now, but that was certainly one of the complexities that we had to navigate through in the early days. It's different today dealing with the NDIS. Well, we actually don't deal with the NDIS because we deal with the OTs. So we don't have any. Sometimes they call us to ask us questions. But other than that, we deal with our clients and the OTs. So which is great. It's working well because the OTs that we work with, they've got a pretty good understanding of what we can do, and they just let us do it. They call us, let us do our thing. They get it, and we give them information so that when they write their report, they understand it as well, which helps the report get approved. And I don't write the reports for the OT, so I don't know what goes in them, but they're quite long and comprehensive, and they must have an understanding of the solution and why we've chosen the devices we've chosen. so they can justify it properly. And if they don't get that right, if it's an OT that isn't experienced in home modifications, the NDIS would just say, no, you didn't justify it properly. Even though it's the same as what we've done with all the other with our other clients, if the OT hasn't written it exactly the way that it should be, then that won't get approved. And then there's the funding side as well.
Ethical technology design is no longer optional in the connected home. On July 29, the SDA Ethical Technology Design Conference, a virtual Australian-led event, dives into the role of ethics in system design, from privacy and safety to accessibility and well-being. Discover how integrators can deliver smarter, more responsible outcomes for clients. Register today at cdia.org. Networking is the backbone of every smart home, and without the right skills, even the best systems can fail. From the 4th to the 6th of August in Sydney, the SDA Networking Specialist School will offer 3 days of hands-on training in IP addressing, switch configuration, Wi-Fi design, troubleshooting, and so much more. Delivered by industry-leading instructors, this brand-agnostic course is designed specifically for integrators. Register your interest today at cdia.org or email pskelton@cdia.org. So I'm not sure if you noticed, but when you did first mention the NDIS, I kind of lit up a little bit because you're the one who invoked them, not me. It's like being the first person to swear in a conversation and think, okay, this is where it's going. So let's talk a little bit about the NDIS, because this is
sorry, you've dropped out, mate. I can't hear a word.
Because this is a subject that you and I have spoken about for years,
Yep.
with some of the work that we've been doing.
True.
I know in my experience that when I have reached out to them, at least at a policy level,
Yep.
Obviously there is a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, but there's also been so much hesitance to even engage. And quite often they just ignore it entirely. From the integrator's perspective, has it been as extreme as what I've dealt with from the policy side?
I don't think so. I haven't experienced that. As I said, we don't deal with the NDIS. We deal with the occupational therapist, and they deal with the NDIS. So I don't have any problems. I haven't had any obstacles to overcome with them with the NDIS program. It's actually been the opposite for us, because if it wasn't for the NDIS, I mean, okay, it's a big beast. It does a lot. They've got a lot on their plate. But if it wasn't for the NDIS supporting the clients or the participants, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing at all for them. They would have none of it, all of the stuff that we've done over the years. They would have none of that. So I've got a lot of respect for them. I understand that it's a big beast. There's a lot of things to deal with and a lot of participants to look after, and we are very, very small. We're a very, very small part of what they have to think about. So I don't deal with them on a policy level. I don't deal with them much at all. As I said, sometimes they'll give me a call to ask me about a proposal, just to make sure that they've got their head around it. And generally, that's when there's a few options that we've put into the proposal for the client. And if the OT hasn't explained what the differences are, then I'll get a call from the NDIA or NDIS program, and they will ask me, and then they will make a decision. But that part to me is always it's been fine. I've had good dealings with them as far as communications. It's difficult to get some jobs done or get some jobs approved. That's a different topic though. We can put in a proposal, the OT can submit their review, their justification report, and then you can just wait and wait. And that's probably one of the differences, one of the bigger differences between working in our industry, in our business, as opposed to the high end, is you have to chase the information. Where is this job at? What's happening with this? I don't know. And there's a reason for that. Occupational therapists, they prescribe this. They prescribe something to help their client reach their goals. But then there's a whole nother division. There's there's things called plan managers, support coordinators and plan managers, and the plan managers have been copping a pounding. So they're busy. They're busier now than ever before, and they have to jump through more hoops. So when we get something submitted, it can take a long time to get approved. And that's not necessarily the plan manager, that's the NDIS. But what I'm trying to get at is there's a whole other section behind that where, and I'm sure they're communicating and trying to work out what's what. I don't know because I don't talk to them, but that can take a long time. So that part I don't like. I don't like them being so slow.
Did you have to go down the pathway of becoming an NDIS provider, or have you been able to avoid that because you are working directly with the OTs and they're the ones that deal with it? Yes.
We looked at that day one. We were going down that road to become a registered provider. So anybody that provides a service is a service provider, but we're not registered because we don't deal with the participants directly. We deal with the occupational therapists, and they subscribe a service or a product or solution that we can offer. So it's different. So there's that, I guess, safety net for the participant and the NDIS. We don't knock on their door and sell them something. We're requested to provide a very niche solution.
So the other thing, I guess, that's in play here with the systems that you are designing is the SDA Specialist Disability Accommodation Design Standard. So that's obviously something, again, that we've worked on quite a bit in generating a response to it.
Yeah.
What has your experience been like in working around that standard?
It's been interesting. I'll say that. So the majority of our clients are living in their home, and we are retrofitting something that can help them live more comfortably at home. When it comes to SDAs, which is a purpose-built accommodation to suit someone with a disability, and we don't generally deal with it a lot, but we quite often, when we do, it's quite often apartments, and they've moved into an SDA apartment, and they want to have lighting control or door automation. Door automation is a big one. Blind control. And I'll give you an example. Let's say door automation. There is a standard in the guidelines to say that that power should be provided at the front door so that door automation, a door operator, can be installed. And the interpretation of that comes down to, I guess, the Sparky on the day, or the builder or the developer. I don't know who makes those decisions, but it's not uncommon to find power points in the ceiling somewhere near the front door, which is not the same as having it above the front, above the door opening on the hinge side. There's a power, and I've seen them. It's like a meter away from the wall. It's like a blank wall plate with power behind it, a meter away from the front wall or the front door, just sitting there, and that's where we're meant to get our power. And I get it. I understand why it happens is because it's a fire rated wall, and there's obviously standards, and it's easier to do something if it's just putting in a bit of cable in the ceiling somewhere. But it's not what's in it's not right. So that was just one example, and you can times that by there's lighting control. Lighting control is pretty basic. There's just lights, certain types of lights which are certain width, have to be a certain height. So that's not difficult. But it's when there's power or cabling involved, they generally take they can take a very strange view of where things can go. And so that's always, and depends on the developer, depends on the builder. Some apartments are absolutely spot on. Everything is where it should be. We can just install some motorized blinds, install and set up a door operator for door automation, and it just works. But it's more often the case not that way. So that was why I was really excited to work with the working group to design the document that made it a bit clearer and brought it up to date, where it was a bit more specific. You have to use this type of cable. And if we talk about door automation, you've got to have the cable, the power on the hinge side, on the front wall, above the door. You've got to have a certain type of cable running from the operator down to where the strike will be. That's what they need. That's what they've got. I still haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen that, but I haven't seen it rolled out. We're still doing apartments today that have got unusual ideas about what an SDA should be. I can say that.
Yeah, it definitely makes it hard out there too, because obviously we do have that document that we put together that
Yep.
we
And that's a great document.
Yep. Now we put it as part of the NDIS review, and there's been a little bit of interest, but we just haven't gotten the traction that we were hoping to get. So it's
I'm surprised mainly because it was very easy to understand. It wasn't technical jargon. This is the issue. This is best practice. Off you go. This is what we think you should do. And we did that for those subsections. For, door operators or door automation, blinds, what sort of cabling. So, it was an easy document to understand. So I don't understand why they haven't rolled it out. I understand there's a lot of changes with the NDIA at the moment and the rules and the regulations. That's changed a lot since we started. They're a lot stricter now, and they've changed things. So not every SDA has to have those. Not every SDA has to follow those guidelines now. It depends on what level they are.
at the very least, I'd like to see more integrators pick it up, and if they're doing this work, just to start applying it, even sharing it with the developers on the properties that they're working on. I think that would definitely help start to build some more awareness out there as well.
I've got to say, it's not hard. If it's a new build, that's an easy thing to incorporate into the build, because they're going to have so they're going to have electricians on site running cables. They may as well, if they're doing the new build, then it shouldn't matter what's going in where. They can run a cable to where it should go, as opposed to putting it in the ceiling instead of above the door. It should be easy. I would certainly recommend any developer that's building an SDA to get a copy of that and just give it to their guys and say, just follow those plans, because it's not going to cost them any more money at all, because they're kind of doing that already. They're just not doing it in the right places, so to speak. So sure.
So if we look, I guess, towards the future, and unfortunately the rate of people with disabilities is increasing, and it will continue to increase. From an integrator's perspective, most of them wouldn't have had any training or experience in working with vulnerable people.
No.
What would you like to see out there available to integrators and have them educated on, that will actually help not just our industry, but people with disabilities?
Well, I wouldn't recommend starting from scratch like us and then learning the hard way. It would be, because here we have technology, we're technology experts, and there's a massive market that can benefit from us. And it doesn't have to be a full-blown high-end automation system, but we are using technology to enhance someone's lives. That's kind of what we do. And there's this massive market where they can benefit from the help that we can give them enormously. So the quicker that can happen, the better. If I said to if there's an integrator out there, or a company out there doing some smart stuff, and we could say, well, here's a market that you're not touching, and it's just sitting there waiting for everybody to get into it. Honestly, I think the best way, I can't give anybody our process and go, this is what we've learned over the years, but I'm certainly happy to answer questions. If someone wants to email me or email the company, I'm happy to point them in the right direction. But I'm certainly happy to help people out and help integrators understand what's possible and try not to fall in any potholes along the way. And we do that now. I've spoken to a few integrators over the years that we've given work to, and we've given them some. This is what we do. This is. I quite often, first thing I do is I'll ask them, if you were going to do this, what would you use? How would you use this? Have you ever used this sort of product? Have you ever used a smart module before? And what sort of smart module have you used, and what did you do with it? And that would then give me an idea of where they're at. Have they done anything that can be retrofitted into a client's house before? I'm not talking about SDAs. SDAs that's really a bigger discussion, because then you're working with, ideally, if you early, you're working with the developers and the builders. But I'm happy to help pass on some information so that can at least point companies like ours in the right direction, so they can start in a new industry, or in a new market, I should say, and start helping some more people. I don't think there's anything out there because it's still quite new. There's OTs. We had to teach all of the OTs that we currently work with how we do things and why we do things. Last year, we were part of a symposium where we presented to 80 occupational therapists from around the country. They all came to Melbourne, and we spent a day talking about home modifications and assistive technology. And so from that, they've all gone away, and they've called us, hey, we've got this client in regional New South Wales. Can you give us a hand? Well, we certainly can. So then I would call someone that I know in regional New South Wales, have a chat to them about it, and then they would take over the job. And that would be a good way for anybody to get involved and not have to go through some of the time-consuming steps that we had to go through. Because it's once you've got a bit of an understanding, you don't have to waste your time. It's not unusual if you have an understanding of what will be approved, that will save you a lot of time, because clients will ask the OTs, they will want certain things in their home, but we will know that wouldn't be justified. Even if the OT agrees and thinks, oh, sure, you can have lighting in all the rooms that you want. And this is a good example. You can have lighting in your bedroom, your bathroom, your hallway, your kitchen, your entry room, your games room, the backyard. That's not going to be easy to get approved. But if we stick to what we know will get approved, that saves us time, because that proposal that we put in that has all of those lovely features and whole house lighting with voice control, that'll just get knocked back. And so you might wait a month or 2 months, and that'll get knocked back. And then you won't know straight away. You might have to find out from the OT, because the OT is busy. Everyone's busy. And we'll give them a call. What's happening with that? Oh, that wasn't approved. Sorry. Now what? Well, why wasn't it approved? Oh, I don't really know. So we now understand that it's better for us to have that conversation with the occupational therapists to let them know that it's got to be essential. And what's the reason for having the games room voice controlled when they don't go upstairs to the games room? That's just an example. So that's just an example of one of the pitfalls that we could certainly help other integrators with, for sure. Where's the industry going? One of our clients had MND. He wanted to control some lights in his house. So we went and did the assessment, and we sorted out what he wanted. He wanted to have some lighting control for his house. He lived in a fairly large rural property, so he wanted to be able to see someone at his driveway gate, open his driveway gate, watch them come up the driveway, and do a few other things in the house, which wasn't an unusual request for us. So how are you going to control these things? So this client had something inserted into his brain. So he would connect himself to his computer with a little magnetized tab, stick it on his chest, and he showed me. And he would use eye gaze to control where the mouse went on his PC, and he used thought control to activate a click of the mouse, a right click or left click. And I thought that was special. I thought that was amazing. He could literally use a thought to control his computer. Very, very basic. And that was a number of years ago. It was a few years ago now. And I just thought, wow, that is awesome. So that was exciting for us to be a part of that project. That was actually a globally recognised project that we did with the client. That he was on the news showing what we did for him. And he was interviewed by all the stations in America, and he had what he calls his 5 minutes of fame. But that was so. I get excited when I see technology doing something that advances the way people live, and that was clearly something that I didn't expect. But that was nice to see and nice to be a part of.
How do you stay on top of all of this new product development, and where do you hear about it and know what you need to be looking at?
Well, that's it's not a job, is it? It's a lifestyle. So everything that I do, pretty much everything that I do is involved with technology. Well, my work's involved with technology. My personal life has technology. And if you involve yourself enough into it, I think it keeps coming to you. So where do I get it? Well, I mean, I get it from everywhere. There's not one place I go to. It's just everything. It's forums, it's news, it's talking to people, it's going to expos, it's talking to suppliers, it's asking suppliers. We have a supplier that we deal with, and we went to them with a wish list of things. We love your product; it's great. It would be nice if we could use your product to do this, 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 and this. They went, okay. So we were given a beta version of a product that we tested. So we tested out a couple of products for this supplier for over the last few years, and that has been something that we never expected too much from this company, but they've delivered and then some. So we've got some very good technology coming to the industry that will certainly help our clients and lots of clients with disabilities. It'll make their life a lot easier. Where, as I said, we gave them the wish list. They made it. It'll be released this year, but I do know they've already gone to the States and signed a deal using this lovely technology. So I like the idea of that, and that didn't come to us. We sort of asked for a wish list, but to stay on top of things, can I say that when we first started doing this technology, we were used to the high end stuff. No brands, but you would want to roll something out. You do your training course, you understand how it programs, you go out and program it. If you want to use smart modules today, be prepared for it to change without any notice. And they're not going to tell you what's changed and how to change and then what to do. It will just change. So we're lucky because we have the ability to stage our jobs. So we get them ready, program them, test them, make sure everything works prior to going to site. So we're not surprised on site very often. But I can say that it's not unusual for a device to be set up one way today, and then next week it'll be completely different. That's tricky. How do you stay on top of that? I think people with technology minds think a certain way. I'm not very artistic, but I can work out technology stuff. And I think a lot of people in our industry have got a knack for understanding how technology works. And it makes it a little bit easier. So I don't have any one place that I go to. I'm just surrounded by technology. And when I see something, when I see something different or see something I like or see something that I think will help, it sticks in my mind. And then I'll get it and research it and play with it.
So now that you've been doing this for a good number of years and you've dealt with a lot of clients with a lot of different levels of disability, what kind of emotional toll has it taken on you?
Ooh, good question. It's something that I wasn't prepared. I didn't think about it until I saw the deterioration of clients. It can take its toll, but at the end of the day, I always know that I did something that made their life, their time on this planet, a little bit better. Doesn't have to be much. So that that sort of that to me, that's what I'm left with. I'm not left with any poor emotions. I'm left with gratitude that I've been able to do something and make a little bit of a difference where I could. And I must say, when we are on site and it's a tricky job and it's a long day and it's late and everyone's tired, my worst day doesn't compare to what they're going through. So that just you just put in what you can. So those golf days on Friday never happen. Working Monday and Thursday and then playing golf on Friday. It's not about that. More often than not, it's a long day, and it's you can't go until the job's finished, and that's that's not a complaint. It's just we're actually grateful that we can do what we can do.
That was Steve Thomas from Geohaven. And look, there's a lot of things that I could say to wrap this up, but I think Steve's words speak for themselves. In a world where we often chase performance, prestige, and wow factor installs, Steve reminds us that purpose matters. That a great system doesn't need to be flashy. It just needs to work, reliably, safely, compassionately. Whether you're already working in assistive tech or it's never crossed your radar, I hope this episode gave you something to think about. Because as our population ages and as disability support evolves, the need for smart, ethical, human-focused design is only going to grow. And we as an industry need to be ready. Thanks for listening. I'm Paul Skelton. I'll see you next time. Are you trying to reach the smart home industry in Australia? Master Integrator is the only podcast focused on the business, ethics, and future of smart home technology in the region, streamed by integrators, electricians, and tech professionals nationwide. If you're a distributor, manufacturer, or service provider looking to speak directly to the people designing and installing connected homes, this is your chance. We're now accepting sponsorships and advertisers for upcoming episodes. So let's talk. Visit masterintegrator.com.au or email masterintegratorpod@gmail.com to get started.